typical cloud types. And I know Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Valdez already got over clouds a couple weeks ago. You've got your cumulus clouds, your cirrus clouds, your big thunderstorm clouds, the nimbus clouds. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the clouds that you really don't see that often. Hence the title. We're talking about rare clouds today and about how some of those form. So I've got about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of rare clouds that we're going to talk about. And maybe you've seen some of these, maybe you haven't. I haven't seen all of these in person. I've only studied some of them. I've never actually seen them, but they're certainly on the bucket list to see as a meteorologist. Of course they are. So let's get right to it. The first one, this is a KH wave. Kelvin Helmholtz is what KH stands for, Kelvin, like the temperature Kelvin. Of course, we have Fahrenheit, Celsius, and then you have Kelvin. So these are really, really neat. I've actually seen these in person before. I've never seen them as defined as this. They can be very defined like this, or they can be very, very teeny tiny in the sky. And I've seen tiny, tiny versions of them here in Georgia, but I've never seen something like this. And certainly that would be really cool. They look like ocean waves. So what's happening here is you've got some stronger winds. You've got different levels of the atmosphere, different layers of the atmosphere. And at the higher level, you've got stronger wind speeds than you do at the lower level. And so that creates that little nice wave that you see. It doesn't happen all the time. Usually it happens in some more stable, some more fair weather, but they are really, really cool to see if you do happen to see them. And usually they happen on windy days. It doesn't have to be windy outside, but of course it is the wind that's helping them form. This is a picture that I actually took a couple weeks ago when we had a severe weather threat. This was in Piedmont Park. These are Undulated Clouds, and these are a little bit more mysterious. In fact, have you ever heard of them? It's because they're a new definition of cloud with just in the last 5 years. 2015, the World Meteorological Organization designated this as a new cloud type, and that's the first time that they've designated a new cloud type in almost 50 years. So that's certainly exciting. And a lot of times when you see this, they look a little bit kind of like waves, not quite the ocean waves that we saw with our last cloud, but they do look a little bit wavy. Meteorologists like to think of the atmosphere as a fluid, like an ocean, and it kind of looks like turbulent, waves. Usually they happen with an unstable atmosphere when you see thunderstorms, and this certainly was the case where we had thunderstorms today. We actually had thunderstorms moving into Atlanta. Sometimes you can see them before, sometimes you can see them afterwards, and usually they are associated with bad weather, but we can see them sometimes. I see them sometimes during the winter when we've got just a little bit of a wave or a little disturbance. I almost said perturbation. Disturbance moving through the atmosphere, and that's when you get that little wave motion. All right, moving on. Certainly, I think a lot of us have seen this one before. This is a shelf cloud. People take pictures of shelf clouds. They've been designated as, they call them shelfies. Nowadays, they got that fun name. You can even find that hashtag on Twitter, hashtag shelfie. These happen with, obviously, bad weather. So what's happening here is we have cold air, it's called the downdraft of a thunderstorm. That cold air is slamming to the ground from those thunderstorms, and it's spreading out ahead of this line of thunderstorms. So as it hits the ground and it spreads, the warm air that it's encountering is getting pushed upwards. It's getting forced upwards into the atmosphere, and that's causing that defined edge. Usually it's the leading edge that you see before some bad weather moves in, and they can be very minor. You can have a very small shelf cloud, or you can have a really, really big one like this. It just depends on that difference that you have between the cold air and the warm air. And I've seen some really impressive ones, not only here in Georgia, I've seen some impressive ones in the plains out in tornado season. You can see some really, really cool shelf clouds, but they are a warning sign that you should probably go inside because bad weather typically follows the shelf clouds. So moving on to the next one. This one's a fun one. I've never seen this. I really want to see this. This is a lenticular cloud, and they happen around mountains. And so what's happening with this, you can see the little tiny green arrow that I drew on there. That's what happens when you have some stable, some moist air that gets forced up the side of a mountain. It encounters the top of that. If temperature meets that dew point, that's when you have the clouds that form. And they kind of look like this one looks like a hat on top of the mountain, but they can also look like spaceships. Usually they just sit there on the top of the mountain, just in the sky. That's why people think that sometimes they look like UFOs or spaceships, because they just kind of sit there and they are very saucer-like. But usually those are associated with fair weather. They don't bring any storms. They don't bring any rain. It's just really, really cool to see. These are fairly rare. You have to have exactly the right conditions for lenticular clouds to form. And sometimes when you get more air that's forced up over and over again on the mountain, you can actually get layers to the lenticular clouds. And that's when they start to look really cool and really tall, even more like a UFO or spaceship. But they're not. It's just a cloud. So let's move on to the very last one. And this one I think just might be my favorite. Why are we not advancing here? This is my favorite. And we see these sometimes in Georgia. They're not as defined as you're seeing right here, but this is a Maddest cloud, and these are associated with severe weather. Now, how these form, it's still a little bit of a mystery, but what the hypothesis, why we think that these form, is you've got these big thunderstorm clouds, and at the top of these thunderstorm clouds, you have ice crystals, and ice crystals will fall out of the back of these thunderstorm clouds, and as they fall, we go from ice crystals directly to water vapor. It's a state of change. You know, you have your condensation, you have your evaporation, but when you go straight from a solid to a gas, that's sublimation, and that cools the air around it, and it causes some of these clouds to kind of sag. And if you see a whole sky of these, it looks really weird. It looks really funky, but it looks incredible, especially when you see them at sunset. So even though they are associated with bad weather, these clouds themselves do not bring bad weather. Usually you find them on the backside of a big thunderstorm that just passed through. I know a lot of times when you get the big powerful thunderstorms, you have tornadoes, and then the backside of this, you get this beautiful display of these very strange looking clouds. It almost looks like pillows that are just hanging down from the sky. It's really bizarre to see. It's really beautiful to see. And once you see it, you never forget it. We do get smaller versions of this in Georgia. I've never seen them quite as defined as what you're looking at here in the picture, but they are really, really neat to see. So those are a couple of the rare clouds. You can go and comment on your favorite one. Maybe, again, this one is my favorite one, and maybe one that you'd like to see. But let's move on to today's trivia question. And that is, which cloud looks like ocean waves? We talked about a couple of clouds that have that wavy appearance, but the answer to this, the one that looks like the most defined ocean waves, are the KH clouds. And we'll go back just so you can see them one more time because they look so cool. KH waves. There you go. So that's your segment on Rare Clouds, today's World of Weather. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I love clouds. I know a lot of people do. I love just watching clouds. Today, not such a great day to watch the clouds outside unless you like storm clouds, because we do have some rain and some storms moving in. So we'll be here on CBS 46 this evening, 4, 5, 6, 9, 11, tracking these showers, tracking these thunderstorms. But I guess before we go, I'm going to talk to my producer, real quick, Mia, and see if we have any questions.
Molly,
Hi.
it doesn't look like we have any questions right now, so.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't look like we have any questions.
Okay, perfect. No questions, but if you have any questions, just write them in the comment section, and I'll try to get to as many as I can. But hopefully you guys love learning about clouds as much as I do. And if you didn't, that's okay. All right, you guys have a great Monday. Join us again tomorrow at 1:15 for World of Weather with Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Valdez.